or I want really the audience to hear, because I know the story, how you got the autograph for Charlotte from Dave Grohl.
Yes.
And then also how we got Bruce Springsteen's autograph.
He's still the background of my phone.
Who is? Dave?
Yeah.
Okay. Even though you have 2 children and a husband, Dave Grohl is still the background of your phone.
I say it's like the top 3 best days of my life.
Okay.
It was like Charlotte Kennedy, Dave Grohl.
Awesome. Wedding.
My wedding.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, listen, it's good to have, at least you got 5 amazing days.
Yeah.
Awesome. More kids along the way, who knows?
The Dave Grohl story is kind of crazy. I was 8 months pregnant, and they were having Bamboozle in Asbury.
The first time, pregnant with Charlotte.
With Charlotte.
Okay.
And they were having Bamboozle in Asbury, which is right by where we lived.
Right.
And my uncle is now the CEO and president of BMI, which is like a huge music licensing company.
Of course.
And
The DJ community is aware of BMI.
Very good, very
right.
good. My uncle's the CEO, if you ever
Nice.
need to talk to someone.
Absolutely.
He knew their manager, and I was like, Uncle Mike, he gets my brother like fish tickets like every 5 minutes. I was like, I never ask for anything.
Right.
I just want to go. I just want to be there.
Right.
Because Foo Fighters were playing, and they're like,
That's
you know, Dave is like my spirit animal. And
Dave Grohl.
yes.
Love it.
So he was like, all right, I'll see what I can do. Like 2 days before the show, we hadn't heard anything, and I was like, I'm not going to pester him. Everyone asks him for things all the time.
Right.
So I was like, I'm not going to pester him.
Right.
Let it go. I was starting to get a little worried. I was like, he's not coming through. We're not going to go.
Uncle Mike.
And like the night before the show, he calls me, and he's like, I have a phone number for you. Go to where the tickets are being held and just give them your name. And I was like, and then what? And he's like, I don't know, just go. I was like, okay. So I'm 8 months pregnant. It's like 100 degrees. I park at a friend's house who we thought was going to be by the ticket place, and it ended up being like 3 miles away.
Okay.
So I walk my giant body all the way down the boardwalk to the ticket place. We get there, give them my name. It takes them like 25 minutes. They come back to the window and they say, the Foo Fighters list isn't here yet. And I'm like, what does that mean? And he's like, come back. I was like, when?
Right.
And he's like, I don't know.
And you've already walked all this way.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm like, I can't even go get a drink. Like, I'm super pregnant. I was like, what do I do? My husband's like, let's just go sit in, there's a restaurant right there. He's like, let's just go sit in Stella for a few minutes and like cool off. I was like, okay. So we're sitting there and he's having a drink. I had like a Sprite.
Right.
And I had this like light bulb went off in my head. I was like, did you hear what he said? My husband was like, no. I was like, he said the Foo Fighters list wasn't in yet. We're on the Foo Fighters list. And he was like, oh my God. And then we got all excited. But we're like, okay, calm down. We don't know.
I want to jump to assumptions.
Yeah. So we go back maybe a half hour later. And there's shows going on, and we're freaking out because we're like, we're gonna miss something, you know?
Right.
Jimmy Eat World was playing at the time, who I loved, and I missed, which I was really sad. But so we go back to the window. I have to give them my license and like 20 forms of ID, and it takes them another 25 minutes. They just disappear with everything I own, and they come back. This guy has like, thank you, like 10 wristbands,
Okay.
and I was like,
Thank you.
what are these? And he's like, I don't know. These were left for you, just take them. Like, no one could tell us anything.
Right.
So I call my uncle, and I'm like, we have wristbands that say, like, producer. I'm like, what does this mean? He was like, does it get you backstage? I was like, that's what the guy said. He was like, just go and act like you own the place. I was like, okay. Meanwhile, we had to walk all the way back to the stage, which was like another 3 miles. I am thinking that I have to walk all the way back, these 3 miles.
Right.
Pregnant. I was like, I'm gonna go into labor. Like, it was 99 degrees.
Right.
I was very close to my duty, so I was like freaking out. This guy comes up with a golf cart, must have seen me like having an internal panic attack, and he was like, do you want to ride? And I was like, no, it's okay. And he was like, listen, get on.
Right.
I will take you as far as we can go, and then you can walk. And I was like, okay. So Matt and I get on the golf cart. The guy takes us like through the crowd, and he's like zipping in and out of people, like in the middle of Bamboozle. I don't know if you've been, but it's like chaos.
Right.
So we get to like the last checkpoint, and he's like, okay, this is where I leave you. And Matt and I just had that overwhelming feeling of like, what now?
Right.
You know, we were all like freaked out again.
Right.
And he was like, just go ahead, go back. So So there's this little gate, and it had, like, when you walk through a store in the mall, like that sensor thing,
Yeah.
you had to like scan the bracelet that they gave you, and it just led us backstage. And we walked back there, and it was just this giant, you're behind the stage that's huge, and everything's covered in mats on the floor, and there was tents and couches, and so we're just standing there, like deer in the headlights, like, where do we go? What do we do? Like, we're back here, now what? And as we're having this conversation about where to go, Dave Grohl is walking by. And my mom is so cheesy. When I got pregnant, she made all these onesies for Charlotte.
She knitted them?
No.
Okay.
She ironed,
okay.
bought like little plain onesies and ironed on pictures
stuff.
of like
Nice.
our favorite bands.
Nice.
And she had a Foo Fighters one. And she tried to make them like kid friendly, so it said like Foo Fight, like food fight, you know?
Nice.
Yeah. So she goes, you have to bring this with you. And I was like, where am I gonna put it? I'm not gonna carry around a onesie. And she was like, just bring it with you, you never know. So I have this little bag, and I have a onesie rolled up with a Sharpie. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna bring it. So I see Dave Grohl out of like my periffs, and I'm like, oh my God, Matt, there he is. And I had never met him before. I've never seen him before in person.
Right.
Like, you know, out, like I've gone to his shows, but I've never been close.
Yeah, you guys
Matt's
never
met
really...
him a couple times.
Oh, okay.
So he was not as starstruck as I
Right.
was.
They're buddies. They're pals at
Oh
this
yeah,
point.
yeah. But they have each other's numbers. They hang out.
Uh-huh.
So I'm like, what should we do? Should I say something? Should I get his attention? And before Matt could even answer, I saw him like walking away. I was like, excuse me! Like screamed at him across backstage.
Right.
And he like turns and looks at me like, who is this crazy girl?
Pregnant. Who's this
Yeah.
crazy pregnant girl? Yeah.
So he's like, oh, and like just starts walking over. And as he's like where you are, his foot caught the mat and he tripped and he kind of like fell into me. And I caught him. I was like, whoa, are you okay there, buddy? And he grabs me and he's like, my ankle, my ankle. We're going to have to cancel the show because of you. And I'm like, oh my God.
Nice.
And I go, easy, buddy. You're going to scare me into labor. And he looks down and like noticed my stomach. And he put both hands on my stomach. And he was like, oh my God. Meanwhile, Matt, who's not starstruck, is like 5 feet away from us. You couldn't even tell we were together. Like just being a creep. And I'm like, and you know, he's like, are you with him? And I was like, yeah, like come here. And he has like all these Foo Fighters tattoos. So we like, you know, him and Dave are talking tattoos, and I pull the onesie out. And I'm like, would you mind? And no one knew Charlotte's name at that point. So I told him, and he, you know, signed a onesie for her, and we got to watch the whole show from stage. I was right next to his mom and Taylor Hawkins' mom, and it was just, it was like the coolest day of my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Top 3.
quite a story.
Yeah.